What if everything you've been taught about one of history's most misunderstood spiritual figures was deliberately designed to hide an explosive truth? Have you ever wondered why, across 2 millennia of religious history, a single mysterious symbol appears in every recorded vision of Mary Magdalene's past lives, a symbol so threatening to religious authorities that they systematically erased it from official doctrine? Welcome to a journey that will challenge the foundations of conventional religious teaching. Today, we're delving into the extraordinary revelations of Edgar Cayce, America's most documented psychic, who repeatedly encountered a forbidden sacred geometry pattern while accessing visions of Mary Magdalene's soul journey across multiple incarnations. Has it ever occurred to you that the transformation of Mary Magdalene from spiritual leader to repentant prostitute might be one of the greatest spiritual cover-ups in human history? For nearly 2,000 years, religious institutions have methodically concealed the true identity of this remarkable woman who stood faithfully by Jesus during his crucifixion when even his closest male disciples fled in fear. The oldest surviving texts paint a completely different picture of Mary Magdalene than what mainstream religion has presented. According to Cayce's remarkable trance readings, this extraordinary spiritual figure wasn't peripheral to Jesus' ministry. She was central to it, possessing advanced spiritual development that predated their meeting. What's more fascinating is how this forbidden symbol appeared consistently throughout her soul journey, marking her as a keeper of ancient wisdom that threatened the emerging patriarchal church. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover about this suppressed sacred geometry and its connection to Mary Magdalene will transform your understanding of early Christianity and the deliberate erasure of the divine feminine from religious consciousness. Edgar Cayce, known as the sleeping prophet, accessed these profound revelations while in deep trance states, completely redefining our understanding of who Mary Magdalene truly was. Not a fallen woman seeking redemption, but a highly evolved spiritual being with a divine mission alongside Jesus Christ. The forbidden symbol that appeared in every vision of her past incarnations served as a spiritual signature, connecting her to ancient mystery schools and esoteric traditions that predated Christianity itself. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What you're about to discover might surprise you. This ancient sacred geometry pattern that religious authorities found so threatening wasn't just a random spiritual symbol. It represented a complete alternative understanding of divinity that honored the feminine aspect of spiritual wisdom alongside the masculine, challenging the very power structures being constructed by early church fathers. This forgotten symbol appeared consistently across Cayce's visions of Mary Magdalene's numerous past incarnations as a priestess, mystic, and keeper of sacred knowledge. This forbidden symbol, appearing like a sacred vesica, pieces surrounded by spiraling lines of energy, represented something profound that traditional religious authorities found deeply threatening. What's truly remarkable is how this transformation of Mary Magdalene from spiritual leader to repentant sinner wasn't simply an accident of history or misinterpretation of texts. The evidence suggests it was a calculated character assassination, a strategic move deliberately orchestrated by later religious leaders who recognized the threat her true identity posed to their emerging power structures. This mindset shift is crucial to understanding the hidden truth behind centuries of religious teaching. The systematic diminishing of Mary Magdalene's role wasn't found in the original Gospels, but was carefully crafted by those constructing a new religious hierarchy, one that couldn't accommodate the profound spiritual authority she represented. Behind the scenes, decisions were being made that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of Western spirituality for millennia to come. The forbidden symbol that appeared across her incarnations represented a different pathway to spiritual enlightenment, one that honored direct revelation, intuitive wisdom, and personal spiritual authority without institutional intermediaries. This transformative understanding explains why Mary Magdalene possessed such high spiritual development and innate wisdom before she ever encountered Jesus. The catalyst for her extraordinary spiritual capacity wasn't her meeting with him, but a soul journey spanning countless lifetimes of spiritual refinement. This revelation illuminates why she became the natural recipient of Jesus' most profound mystical teachings, knowledge he couldn't share with others whose spiritual development hadn't prepared them to comprehend such elevated concepts. The impact of this understanding reverberates through religious history, challenging everything about conventional notions of spiritual authority, divine connection, and the systematic suppression of feminine wisdom throughout the development of institutionalized Christianity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the remarkable soul connection that Edgar Cayce revealed between Mary Magdalene and Jesus. According to his psychic readings, their relationship wasn't a random encounter between teacher and follower, but represented something far more profound: the reunion of two highly evolved souls who had worked together through multiple incarnations on spiritual missions spanning the boundaries of time itself. This cosmic partnership explains the depth of recognition that must have occurred when their paths crossed. Imagine the profound soul recognition when two beings who had collaborated across numerous lifetimes encountered each other again in first-century Judea. The journey of their shared purpose wasn't beginning in that moment, but continuing a spiritual mission that had been unfolding across millennia. The forbidden symbol appearing in visions of Mary Magdalene's past lives served as a connective thread, linking these incarnations through a sacred geometry that embodied the integration of masculine and feminine spiritual energies in perfect balance, precisely the equilibrium that was being systematically dismantled by emerging patriarchal religious structures. If you've ever experienced that inexplicable feeling of immediate recognition upon meeting someone, as if your soul remembers what your conscious mind does not, write soul recognition in the comments below. The oldest surviving texts paint a vastly different portrait of Mary Magdalene than the one handed down through centuries of religious tradition. When we journey back to these ancient documents, many only rediscovered in the last century, we find not a repentant sinner, but a respected spiritual leader, acknowledged by Jesus himself. The forbidden symbol that appeared in Cayce's visions of her past lives seems to correlate directly with references in these texts to her role as the apostle to the apostles, a title that recognizes her as one of Christ's most trusted companions. These primary sources suggest something revolutionary, a profound soul connection between Mary Magdalene and Jesus that spanned multiple incarnations. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept challenges conventional religious understanding, but illuminates why she appears so prominently at pivotal moments in the gospel narratives. Their relationship represented a spiritual partnership forged across the ages, a collaborative mission that transcended a single lifetime. Behind the scenes of religious history, we can trace the systematic erasure of Mary Magdalene's true identity, a process representing history's first major silencing of the divine feminine spiritual force. The catalyst for this suppression wasn't theological accuracy, but institutional power preservation. The emerging religious structures of early Christianity recognized something profoundly dangerous in her presence. Her powerful spiritual connection and authority directly threatened the hierarchies they were carefully establishing. This transformation from venerated spiritual figure to repentant prostitute didn't happen by accident or misinterpretation. The decision to diminish her role reflects a calculated strategy to delegitimize feminine spiritual authority at Christianity's very foundation. The impact of this single act of historical revisionism established a pattern that would repeat for centuries: the systematic exclusion of women from positions of spiritual leadership and the severing of Christianity from its balanced spiritual roots. What made Mary Magdalene's presence so threatening was precisely what made her spiritually extraordinary. She embodied a completely different pathway to spiritual enlightenment, one that honored intuition, direct revelation, and the wisdom of the heart, alongside intellectual understanding. The journey she represented didn't require institutional intermediaries or hierarchical authority, but offered direct connection with divine wisdom through inner knowing. If you've been fascinated by these hidden truths about Mary Magdalene and the forbidden symbol, subscribe now to join our community of seekers, uncovering the mysteries that conventional history has concealed from us. The forbidden symbol, appearing throughout her incarnations, embodied this alternative spiritual approach, a pathway that couldn't be controlled or contained within the frameworks religious authorities were establishing. The revelation of this symbol through Cayce's readings illuminates why acknowledging Mary Magdalene's true role would have meant validating a form of spirituality that bypassed centralized religious control entirely. Religious leaders understood that legitimizing her spiritual authority would establish a dangerous precedent: recognition that divine wisdom could be accessed directly through personal, spiritual development rather than institutional channels. This hidden truth explains why so much effort was invested in transforming her from spiritual leader to penitent follower, effectively removing the threat she posed to emerging power structures. If you've ever felt drawn to a more direct, intuitive approach to spirituality that honors personal revelation over institutional authority, type inner wisdom in the comments below. Now I want to examine more closely the remarkable forbidden symbol that Edgar Cayce repeatedly encountered in his visions of Mary Magdalene's past lives. This wasn't a casual or random appearance. This ancient sacred geometry connected to the divine feminine manifested consistently throughout every incarnation of her soul. The pattern, resembling an intricate vesica piscis surrounded by spiraling energy fields, served as a spiritual signature, marking her as a keeper of sacred mysteries dating back thousands of years before she ever encountered Jesus in Judea. This profound revelation illuminates the true nature of Mary Magdalene's spiritual lineage. According to Cayce's readings, she wasn't simply a follower who happened upon Jesus' path by chance. The hidden truth behind this symbol reveals her connection to both Egyptian mystery schools and Essenes traditions, esoteric lineages that preserved ancient wisdom through carefully guarded initiatory practices. The journey of her soul through these spiritual traditions provided her with a foundation of mystical knowledge that most of Jesus' followers simply couldn't comprehend. Behind the scenes of conventional religious narratives lies this extraordinary dimension of Mary Magdalene's identity. She possessed remarkable psychic abilities and a profound understanding of spiritual realms that weren't newly acquired gifts, but capacities refined through countless incarnations. The catalyst for these abilities wasn't her meeting with Jesus, but her development as a mystic, seer, and guardian of ancient spiritual traditions across many lifetimes of dedicated spiritual practice. The transformation this understanding brings to our perception of early Christianity is revolutionary. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations represented a level of spiritual development that allowed her to perceive dimensions of reality hidden to ordinary awareness. This explains why she could recognize the divine nature in Jesus immediately, while others remained blind to it. Her spiritual sight, developed through many lifetimes, enabled her to see beyond surface appearances into the essence of beings. What emerges from Cayce's revelations is a mindset shift that completely reorients our understanding of Mary Magdalene's relationship with Jesus. She wasn't an ordinary convert who found salvation through him. The impact of this revelation is far more profound. She was already a highly evolved spiritual being when their paths crossed, fundamentally transforming our entire understanding of their relationship and the dynamic between them. Imagine the depth of recognition that must have occurred when these two advanced souls encountered each other in first-century Palestine. This wasn't the beginning of Mary Magdalene's spiritual journey, but the continuation of a sacred path she had walked across multiple incarnations. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her past lives served as a thread connecting these spiritual missions, a visual representation of the divine. Feminine wisdom she embodied that would later be systematically erased from Christian teaching. If you've ever experienced a moment of profound spiritual recognition, when you instantly knew something important about your path without being told, write "ancient remembering" in the comments below. The veil between worlds was remarkably thin for Mary Magdalene long before she encountered Jesus on her spiritual journey. According to Cayce's revelations, she didn't merely stumble upon spiritual understanding by chance, but came from an ancient lineage of spiritually advanced souls and initiates stretching back through countless generations. This sacred heritage provided her with profound esoteric knowledge that allowed her to immediately recognize the divine nature within Jesus when their paths crossed. An instantaneous soul recognition that only comes from carrying ancient wisdom from previous existences. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations served as a visual marker of this lineage, a sacred seal that connected her to mystery traditions predating Christianity by millennia. The revelation of this symbol throughout Cayce's readings illuminates why Mary Magdalene could perceive the Christ consciousness within Jesus with such clarity, while others remained blind to it. Her spiritual sight, developed through countless lifetimes, allowed her to see beyond physical appearances into the essence of spiritual reality itself. Behind the scenes of what appears in biblical accounts lies a much deeper narrative of spiritual development spanning many incarnations. The transformation this understanding brings to our perception of early Christianity is profound. What appeared as a new religious movement was actually the continuation of much older wisdom traditions, with both Jesus and Mary Magdalene as their culminating expressions. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept challenges conventional religious understanding, but opens doorways to recognizing the true nature of spiritual wisdom that transcends any single tradition or time period. The real Mary Magdalene that emerges from Cayce's readings was a mystic and seer in her own right, a guardian of ancient spiritual traditions dating back to Egyptian and Essene mysteries. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her past lives represented her connection to these esoteric lineages, marking her as a keeper of sacred knowledge that had been carefully preserved through initiatory traditions for thousands of years. The impact of this understanding reverberates through spiritual history, suggesting that early Christianity wasn't something entirely new, but the evolution of ancient wisdom streams flowing together into a new expression. Mary Magdalene's extraordinary perceptual abilities weren't newly acquired gifts, but capacities refined through previous incarnations. She could perceive dimensions of reality hidden to ordinary awareness, which explains why she was often present At the most pivotal moments in Jesus' ministry, her spiritual sight allowed her to witness and understand the deeper significance of events that others could only partially comprehend. The journey of consciousness development that enabled these abilities hadn't begun when she met Jesus. It represented the culmination of soul growth spanning countless lifetimes. This perspective reveals why religious authorities felt so threatened by her presence. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout. Her incarnations represented direct access to spiritual wisdom that didn't require institutional intermediaries, a pathway to divine connection that bypassed hierarchical authority structures entirely. This explains why Mary Magdalene could perceive multidimensional realities with such clarity. Her consciousness had evolved through many lifetimes to naturally transcend the limitations of ordinary perception. If you've ever experienced moments when you suddenly perceive something beyond what your physical senses can detect, a knowing that transcends ordinary awareness, type veil thinning in the comments below. The power dynamics that Mary Magdalene challenged run far deeper than conventional religious history acknowledges. According to Cayce's revelations, she represented everything the emerging religious establishment feared most, a spiritually empowered woman with direct access to divine wisdom who, by her very existence, questioned the necessity of religious hierarchies altogether. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations embodied this threat, representing a complete spiritual paradigm that couldn't be contained within the institutional frameworks being constructed. This revelation illuminates why such extraordinary efforts were made to diminish her importance. Her presence demonstrated a profound truth that threatened centralized religious control, that connection with the divine is every soul's natural birthright, requiring no institutional gatekeepers or hierarchical intermediaries. The journey she represented offered a completely different pathway to spiritual awakening, one based on direct experience rather than mediated authority. The impact of this understanding challenges the very foundations upon which institutional religion was built. Consider the paradigm shift this represents. In a world where spiritual authority was increasingly becoming centralized and male-dominated, Mary Magdalene embodied a radically different approach to enlightenment, direct communion with the divine through inner knowing rather than external authority. The transformation this understanding brings to conventional religious history is revolutionary, suggesting that what was lost with her systematic erasure wasn't merely one woman's contribution, but an entire pathway of spiritual development. The mindset behind her approach honored the integration of intuitive wisdom, direct revelation, and personal spiritual authority, precisely the elements that threatened emerging power structures. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations represented this integrated approach to spirituality, a visual embodiment of the divine feminine wisdom that was being systematically excluded from official Christian teaching. Behind the scenes of religious development, decisions were being made that would shape Western spirituality for millennia by removing this essential balancing force. What Edgar Cayce uncovered through his remarkable psychic readings was that the portrayal of Mary Magdalene as a fallen woman represents one of Christianity's greatest historical distortions. This wasn't simply an error or misinterpretation. It was a deliberate campaign of calculated distortion designed to obscure something far more profound, her spiritual dimension and her ancient soul connection to Christ consciousness across multiple incarnations. The systematic erasure of Mary Magdalene's true identity wasn't merely about diminishing one woman's role. It represents history's first major silencing of the divine feminine spiritual force. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout Cayce's visions of her past lives served as tangible evidence of this suppression, a sacred geometry pattern deliberately removed from religious iconography because it represented the integration of feminine wisdom with masculine spiritual authority, a balance that threatened emerging patriarchal structures. The religious power structures of early Christianity recognized something profoundly dangerous in her presence and in the sacred symbol that marked her spiritual lineage across many lifetimes. Her powerful spiritual connection threatened the very hierarchies they were establishing, representing a direct pathway to divine wisdom that couldn't be controlled or contained. If you've ever sensed that conventional religious teaching seems incomplete or imbalanced, missing an essential dimension of spiritual wisdom, type divine balance in the comments below. The profound implications of Mary Magdalene's story reach far beyond historical curiosity, inviting us to fundamentally question the conventional spiritual frameworks that have shaped Western consciousness for millennia. Her journey across multiple lifetimes, each marked by the appearance of this forbidden symbol, challenges us to examine whether our current spiritual paradigms truly serve our highest evolution or are simply remnants of power structures deliberately designed to limit direct divine connection. The transformation this understanding brings to our spiritual perspective is revolutionary, suggesting that what we've accepted as complete spiritual teaching may be fundamentally imbalanced. Don't miss our upcoming revelations about ancient spiritual wisdom. Hit subscribe and become part of this growing community dedicated to rediscovering sacred knowledge that was deliberately hidden throughout history. This sacred geometry pattern that appeared consistently throughout her incarnations represented a holistic approach to spirituality that honored both intellectual understanding and heart-centered wisdom, a balanced pathway that was systematically excluded from mainstream religious teaching. The mindset shift required to grasp the significance of this symbol challenges us to recognize how differently our collective spiritual journey might have unfolded had the divine feminine remained an honored part of Christian teaching from the beginning. Behind the scenes of religious history lies this profound truth. The feminine aspect of spirituality isn't secondary or supplementary, but essential to a complete understanding of our divine nature. The journey to reclaim Mary Magdalene's true identity and the forbidden symbol that marked her spiritual lineage is ultimately about reclaiming lost dimensions of our own spiritual heritage. This hidden wisdom transforms not only how we see Mary Magdalene, but how we understand our own capacity for direct spiritual connection beyond institutional intermediaries. The revelation of this forbidden symbol throughout Cayce's visions illuminates something extraordinary, that spiritual wisdom isn't gendered, but rather requires the integration of both masculine and feminine approaches to achieve wholeness. The impact of recognizing this balance challenges us to expand beyond the limitations of patriarchal spiritual frameworks that have dominated Western consciousness for 2 millennia, opening doorways to more integrated understanding of our divine nature. Now, I want to explore an even more profound aspect of Mary Magdalene's relationship with Jesus that Cayce revealed through his readings. Far from being a peripheral figure in Jesus' ministry, Cayce showed that Mary Magdalene was central to his spiritual mission, a divine collaborator and soul companion working alongside him to accomplish their shared cosmic purpose. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations represented this sacred partnership, a visual embodiment of their soul connection across multiple lifetimes. The breakthrough understanding here is that Mary Magdalene's constant presence at the most crucial moments of Jesus' earthly journey wasn't coincidental, but intentional and essential. Consider this revelation for a moment. She remained steadfast at the crucifixion when many disciples fled in fear. She witnessed his suffering, death, and ultimately his resurrection with unwavering dedication. This extraordinary presence reveals a spiritual courage that transcends ordinary devotion, What would drive someone to such profound commitment unless they shared in the very essence of the mission itself? Cayce's insights illuminate the deeper dynamics at play. The closeness between Jesus and Mary Magdalene wasn't merely circumstantial, it resulted from a profound karmic connection established through multiple incarnations, each marked by the appearance of this forbidden sacred geometry symbol that religious authorities later worked so diligently to erase from Christian iconography. If you've ever felt an inexplicable soul connection with someone that seemed to transcend your current lifetime, as if you've known them before, type "eternal bond" in the comments below. According to Cayce's remarkable readings, the souls of Jesus and Mary Magdalene had walked together through countless incarnations before their meeting in first-century Palestine. Their profound karmic connection wasn't merely personal, but cosmic in significance, a divine partnership established across multiple dimensions and time frames. The forbidden symbol that appeared in visions of her past lives served as a visual testament to this eternal bond, representing the sacred geometry of their shared spiritual missions throughout the ages. The catalyst for their extraordinary soul recognition wasn't random circumstance but cosmic orchestration. They had undertaken spiritual missions together across different lifetimes and dimensions, each time advancing humanity's collective consciousness evolution. This perspective illuminates why their connection was so immediate and profound. A soul recognition that transcended ordinary human relationships and represented the reunion of two advanced beings who had chosen to incarnate simultaneously to fulfill specific divine purposes in planetary transformation. This revelation completely reshapes our understanding of their relationship. Rather than the conventional narrative of teacher and student, Cayce's insights reveal Jesus and Mary Magdalene as conscious collaborators, each bringing unique yet complementary spiritual gifts to their shared cosmic work. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept transforms how we perceive not only early Christianity, but spiritual partnerships generally, not as hierarchical relationships, but as divine collaborations between souls of equal spiritual development, expressing different yet harmonious aspects of cosmic wisdom. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout Mary Magdalene's incarnations represented this sacred partnership, the integration of masculine and feminine spiritual energies working in perfect harmony to anchor higher consciousness on earth. Behind the scenes of biblical narratives lies this profound truth that what appeared as a new religious movement was actually the culmination of a spiritual mission spanning countless lifetimes, with both Jesus and Mary Magdalene serving as its conscious architects. Perhaps the most telling evidence of their extraordinary connection appears in one of Christianity's pivotal moments, Mary Magdalene as the first witness to the resurrection. This wasn't random chance or fortunate timing. According to Cayce, she was the first to perceive the resurrected Christ precisely because her heightened spiritual sensitivity, developed over many lifetimes and represented by the forbidden symbol, allowed her to perceive realities that remained invisible to others with less developed spiritual sight. The veil between dimensions was naturally thinner for her, enabling her to recognize and interact with Christ's transformed presence, while others remained blind to it. This exceptional perceptual ability explains why Jesus appeared first to Mary Magdalene rather than to his male disciples, not favoritism, but spiritual pragmatism. She was simply the most capable of perceiving his resurrected form due to her advanced spiritual development spanning numerous incarnations. The transformation this brings to the resurrection story is profound, illuminating it not as a miraculous event witnessed by chance, but as a deliberate spiritual transmission to the one soul most prepared to receive and understand it. This perspective reveals Mary Magdalene not merely as a passive witness, but as an essential bridge between dimensions that made the continuation of Christ's teachings possible after his physical death. If you've ever experienced moments when you could perceive something others around you seemed unable to see or understand, a heightened awareness that transcended ordinary perception, type dimensional sight in the comments below. Mary Magdalene's spiritual capacity went far beyond what most religious accounts portray. According to Cayce's revelations, she possessed a unique ability to attune to the frequencies of Christ consciousness that allowed her to understand aspects of Jesus' teachings that remained veiled to others. The forbidden symbol, appearing throughout her incarnations, represented this remarkable receptivity, a visual testament to her capacity to receive wisdom from higher dimensions that most minds simply couldn't access. This extraordinary attunement wasn't developed overnight, but was the culmination of spiritual evolution spanning many lifetimes. Imagine being able to perceive the subtle vibrations of higher dimensional consciousness that most people simply can't access. This was Mary Magdalene's natural state of being, explaining why Jesus shared certain mystical teachings exclusively with her. The journey of spiritual transmission wasn't favoritism, but spiritual practicality. She was simply capable of comprehending revelations that would have been incomprehensible to others. The transformation this brings to our understanding of early Christianity suggests that alongside more accessible teachings given to the masses, there existed a deeper stream of mystical wisdom entrusted to those whose consciousness had evolved sufficiently to receive it. Behind the scenes of the gospel narratives lies this hidden dimension of Jesus and Mary Magdalene's connection. Cayce revealed they recognized each other instantly as spiritual soulmates who had incarnated together many times before. Theirs wasn't merely a relationship between teacher and student, but a sacred partnership between two highly evolved souls who had chosen to incarnate simultaneously to fulfill specific divine purposes in the transformation of planetary consciousness. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept invites us to view spiritual relationships not as random encounters, but as cosmic appointments, reunions of souls who have worked together before and will likely continue their collaboration across future incarnations. The forbidden symbol that appeared in visions of Mary Magdalene's past lives served as a visual representation of this sacred partnership, embodying the integration of divine masculine and feminine energies, working in perfect harmony to anchor higher consciousness on Earth. This soul recognition explains the immediate depth of their connection. When they encountered each other, there was an instantaneous remembrance not just of this lifetime, but of countless shared missions across the tapestry of time itself. Perhaps most remarkably, Mary Magdalene served as a conscious bridge between Jesus and higher spiritual dimensions, facilitating channelings and revelations that enriched humanity's collective understanding. This wasn't a role she stumbled into, but a sacred function she had prepared for across multiple incarnations. The impact of her presence created a conduit through which higher dimensional wisdom could flow into earthly consciousness with minimal distortion. The forbidden symbol marking her incarnations represented this bridging capacity, her ability to translate cosmic concepts into forms that could be comprehended by human minds. Consider what this means for the transmission of spiritual wisdom. Mary Magdalene wasn't simply recording or memorizing Jesus' words. She was actively participating in the revelation process itself, helping to translate cosmic concepts into forms that could be comprehended by human minds, a sacred partnership in which each brought essential and complementary gifts. If you've experienced moments when you felt like a conduit for wisdom beyond your normal understanding, when ideas or insights seem to flow through you rather than from you, type divine channel in the comments below. This bridging function explains why Mary Magdalene was present at pivotal moments throughout Jesus' ministry. Her energy field, refined through countless lifetimes of spiritual practice and marked by the forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations, created optimal conditions for dimensional gateways to open, allowing higher frequencies of consciousness to manifest in the physical realm. The transformation this understanding brings to our perception of gospel events is profound, suggesting that many of Jesus' miracles and teachings were facilitated by this sacred partnership that created the precise vibrational environment necessary for higher wisdom to anchor in earthly consciousness. Imagine the extraordinary spiritual alchemy that occurred when these two advanced souls worked in conscious harmony. His expression of divine masculine energy perfectly complemented by her embodiment of divine feminine wisdom, creating a unified field through which cosmic intelligence could flow unimpeded. This hidden truth illuminates why Mary Magdalene's presence was essential rather than incidental at critical moments in Christ's ministry. Her energy signature, represented by the forbidden symbol, created the sacred container within which higher dimensional realities could manifest. Now, I want to explore why this profound spiritual partnership was systematically erased from official Christian teaching. The systematic downplaying of Mary Magdalene's central role wasn't a subtle oversight or gradual forgetting. It was a deliberate strategy employed by the nascent church hierarchy. According to Cayce's revelations, her true position in Jesus' inner circle was methodically diminished in official gospel versions, specifically because her closeness to Jesus directly challenged the authority structures being constructed by emerging religious leaders. This calculated revision exposes the political dimensions behind what many assume was simply historical development. The journey from Mary Magdalene's original prominence to her diminished portrayal reflects conscious decisions made to consolidate patriarchal religious power. The mindset behind these choices reveals how threatening the forbidden symbol and what it represented truly was to those establishing centralized religious control. It embodied a complete alternative to hierarchical spiritual authority that honored direct revelation and personal spiritual empowerment. When we examine the historical record through the lens of Cayce's insights, we see a pattern of intentional revision at work. Documents that emphasized Mary Magdalene's spiritual authority were systematically excluded from the canonical texts, establishing a blueprint for controlling religious narrative that would be replicated throughout history whenever spiritual truth threatened established power. The impact of these early editorial decisions cannot be overstated. They fundamentally altered Christianity's development by removing the balancing feminine wisdom that had been integral to Jesus' actual ministry. Behind the scenes of what appears as theological consensus was often the result of carefully orchestrated suppression. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout Mary Magdalene's incarnations represented precisely what these emerging power structures feared most: a complete spiritual paradigm that honored direct connection with the divine without institutional intermediaries. This revelation exposes how what we've received as religious tradition often reflects political calculations rather than spiritual authenticity, decisions made to ensure centralized control rather than to preserve the fullness of Christ's actual teaching. If you've ever sensed that there seem to be missing pieces in conventional religious teachings, aspects of spiritual wisdom that feel conspicuously absent, type hidden knowledge in the comments below. Yet despite these efforts, the essence of what Jesus and Mary Magdalene represented couldn't be completely erased from spiritual consciousness. According to Cayce, their unique connection demonstrated something revolutionary, divine love manifesting through spiritual unions that transcended ordinary human understanding. The sacred partnership they embodied wasn't merely personal, but cosmic in its significance. Mary Magdalene was a conscious collaborator in the mission of anchoring Christ consciousness on earth, a spiritual undertaking they had worked on together across multiple incarnations. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her past lives represented this sacred partnership, the integration of divine masculine and feminine energies working in perfect harmony to elevate planetary consciousness. This perspective illuminates the transformative power of spiritual partnerships that transcend conventional relationships based primarily on emotional or physical connection. Their bond represented the harmonious union of complementary spiritual energies, creating a vehicle for higher consciousness to manifest in the physical realm. The revelation of this symbol through Cayce's readings challenges us to reconsider what true spiritual collaboration can achieve when souls recognize their shared cosmic purpose and work in conscious harmony across multiple lifetimes. The journey they embodied wasn't about hierarchy, but sacred partnership, each contributing unique yet essential aspects to their shared mission of planetary transformation. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept invites us to move beyond conventional religious frameworks into a more expansive understanding of how spiritual evolution actually unfolds. Perhaps most significantly, Cayce revealed that Mary Magdalene was the recipient of esoteric teachings that Jesus didn't share with his other disciples. This wasn't arbitrary favoritism, but recognition of her unique spiritual capacity. The forbidden symbol marking her incarnations represented her established position as an initiate into the deepest mysteries of Christic spirituality, a body of knowledge she had been preparing to receive through many previous incarnations. The journey of her soul had specifically equipped her to comprehend and preserve these advanced spiritual concepts. While the crowds received parables and even the ordinary disciples heard only basic explanations, Mary Magdalene was guided into the most hidden and transformative aspects of divine wisdom. According to Cayce, Jesus imparted to her profound revelations about the multidimensional nature of the soul, the processes of spiritual ascension, and the sacred geometry underlying cosmic creation, knowledge represented by the forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her past lives. This privileged transmission wasn't merely intellectual, but represented the preservation of a sacred lineage of wisdom that humanity wasn't yet collectively ready to receive. The transformation this brings to our understanding of early Christianity suggests that alongside the more accessible teachings that became mainstream religion, there existed a parallel stream of advanced mystical instruction designed for souls who had reached sufficient spiritual development. The catalyst for accessing this deeper understanding wasn't institutional authority, but inner spiritual evolution, a completely different paradigm than the hierarchical model that would later dominate organized religion. If you've ever sensed there are deeper spiritual truths behind the surface-level religious teachings we commonly receive, wisdom that resonates with your soul despite never being explicitly taught, type inner knowing in the comments below. Now I want to explore the extraordinary depth of spiritual knowledge that Jesus shared exclusively with Mary Magdalene. According to Cayce's readings, Jesus revealed to her profound insights about the multidimensional nature of the soul, teachings far beyond what appeared in conventional gospel accounts. These weren't simplistic religious concepts, but sophisticated understandings about how consciousness exists simultaneously across multiple planes of reality. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations represented this multidimensional understanding, a sacred geometry pattern encoding cosmic wisdom that threatened rigid religious dogma. Mary Magdalene could comprehend these complex revelations precisely because her soul development across many lifetimes had prepared her for this level of cosmic understanding. Imagine conversations between them, exploring how the soul navigates different dimensions between incarnations, the mechanics of spiritual ascension, and the sacred geometry underlying creation itself, all represented in the forbidden symbol that marked her spiritual lineage. The revelation here is that Mary Magdalene wasn't merely a passive recipient of these teachings, but an active participant in these explorations, bringing her own wisdom and perspectives to their shared discoveries. This vision of spiritual collaboration completely transforms our understanding of early Christian mysticism, suggesting a profound exchange of wisdom rather than one-way transmission. The journey they undertook together wasn't about establishing religious dogma, but exploring the deepest mysteries of consciousness itself. Knowledge encoded in the forbidden symbol that would later be systematically erased from official Christian iconography. What's particularly remarkable about Mary Magdalene's spiritual development is her mastery of practical spiritual alchemy. Cayce revealed that she understood how to transmute negative emotions into higher vibrational energy, consciously access expanded states of awareness, and channel divine healing energy. These weren't abstract concepts to her, but practical techniques she had refined over countless lifetimes of spiritual development. The hidden truth is that Mary Magdalene embodied a path of spiritual transformation that integrated mystical understanding with practical application, a balanced approach often missing from institutionalized religion. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations represented this alchemical wisdom, knowledge of how to transform consciousness through specific spiritual practices that had been preserved through esoteric lineages stretching back to ancient Egypt. This practical dimension of her spiritual mastery explains why she was able to maintain such extraordinary presence and clarity even during the traumatic events of the crucifixion and resurrection. She possessed inner technologies for transmuting suffering into spiritual illumination. Perhaps most provocative is Cayce's revelation that Mary Magdalene possessed personal manuscripts recording the mystical revelations she received directly from Jesus. These weren't merely copies of his teachings, but included detailed meditation techniques, spiritual healing practices, and methods for raising consciousness that were not shared widely. According to Cayce, these documents contained specific instructions on developing psychic abilities, establishing communication with higher spiritual planes, and recognizing divine presence across different dimensions of reality. Wisdom, encoded in the forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations. If you've ever practiced meditation or energy work and experienced a profound shift in your consciousness, a tangible transformation of your inner state, type spiritual alchemy in the comments below. Now I want to explore one of the most extraordinary aspects of Mary Magdalene's spiritual capacity revealed in Cayce's readings. According to these revelations, she received practical instructions from Jesus on consciously navigating between different states of being, essentially moving between dimensions while maintaining complete awareness and identity continuity. The forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations represented this dimensional fluidity, a sacred geometry pattern encoding the precise vibrational frequencies needed to traverse different planes of consciousness with full awareness. These remarkable abilities weren't newly acquired, but represented spiritual technologies she had developed and refined through many incarnations. Consider what this dimensional navigation would mean in practical terms. Mary Magdalene could access higher realms of consciousness at will, bringing back insights and understandings that remained inaccessible to others. The transformation this brings to our understanding of spiritual development suggests that boundaries between physical and spiritual realms aren't fixed, but permeable to those who have developed the necessary inner technologies. This multidimensional awareness explains why Cayce revealed that Mary Magdalene was specifically prepared through many lifetimes to become a guardian of sacred knowledge. Her soul journey had uniquely equipped her to ensure Christianity's deepest esoteric truths weren't lost during periods of persecution and doctrinal distortion. The mindset shift required to grasp this concept challenges conventional religious understanding, but opens doorways to recognizing the profound spiritual capacities that lie dormant within human consciousness. The hidden truth here is that Mary Magdalene wasn't merely preserving information, but establishing secret initiatory lineages that would keep authentic spiritual practices alive through centuries of religious suppression. These underground traditions maintained the flame of original Christic wisdom, allowing spiritually developed souls of different eras to access genuine teachings through channels outside official ecclesiastical authority. Behind the scenes of official religious history, these lineages created an unbroken chain of transmission that preserved the most transformative aspects of Jesus' teachings, the very elements that institutional Christianity either couldn't comprehend or actively feared. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout her incarnations served as a recognition marker within these mystery schools, a visual key that identified authentic lineage holders who understood the original mystical dimensions of Christ's teaching. This explains why this symbol was so systematically erased from official Christian iconography. It represented access to spiritual wisdom outside institutional control. One of the most extraordinary validations of Cayce's insights came centuries after his revelations with the discovery of the Gospel of Mary in the 20th century. This remarkable text, found among the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt, confirmed what Cayce had described decades earlier: Mary Magdalene's hidden importance in early Christianity as an authoritative spiritual leader who received direct dialogues with Jesus about the soul's deepest mysteries. The forbidden symbol that appeared in visions of her past seems directly connected to the mystical cosmology described in this ancient text. If you've ever felt an intuitive connection to ancient wisdom traditions that seem to exist beneath the surface of conventional religious teaching, as if part of your soul recognizes truths your mind was never explicitly taught, type "ancient remembering" in the comments below. Despite systematic efforts to erase her spiritual legacy, fragments of Mary Magdalene's wisdom and the forbidden symbol that appeared throughout her incarnations survived through the centuries. Secret oral traditions preserved by mystical lineages kept alive the memory of her role as a bearer of special esoteric teachings, creating underground currents of authentic Christian mysticism that flowed parallel to official institutions. The journey of this hidden wisdom continued through various mystical traditions: Gnostic communities, Christian Sufis, and esoteric orders, each preserving aspects of the original revelations associated with the forbidden symbol. What makes this revelation particularly meaningful for our time is that the wisdom Mary Magdalene embodied represents precisely the spiritual understanding many are now intuitively seeking: a balanced integration of divine feminine and masculine energies, direct spiritual connection beyond institutional intermediaries, and practical methods for expanding consciousness. The awakening represented by the rediscovery of this forbidden symbol speaks directly to the spiritual evolution humanity is experiencing today. The rediscovery of texts like the Gospel of Mary in the last century represents the fulfillment of what Cayce predicted: the re-emergence of these hidden truths when humanity's collective consciousness became ready to receive them again. The forbidden symbol appearing throughout Mary Magdalene's incarnations has begun reappearing in contemporary spiritual consciousness, suggesting a cosmic cycle completing itself as these ancient wisdom Streams return to nourish our collective evolution. If this journey through Mary Magdalene's hidden identity and the forbidden symbol that marked her spiritual lineage has resonated with you on a deeper level, I'd love to hear from you. The connection between souls who recognize these truths transcends time and space. Simply write "soul remembering" in the comments if you felt that inexplicable knowing as we explored these revelations together. I create these videos as pathways to wisdom that has been deliberately concealed. And if you found value in this exploration, subscribing to this channel ensures you'll be part of our continuing journey uncovering hidden spiritual truths. When you tap that like button, you're helping others find this information too, expanding the circle of awakening unfolding across humanity right now. There's another video waiting for you that explores Edgar Cayce's revelations about the hidden Essene community that both Jesus and Mary Magdalene were connected to in previous incarnations, where this same forbidden symbol appeared repeatedly in their sacred practices. Click there now and continue this journey of spiritual rediscovery with me. There's so much more waiting to be revealed.